What's up, guys, and welcome to the very first episode of Creepin with your Gothic guru. This is basically going to be an episodic video reviews of audiobooks that I'm listening to in an attempt to learn, educate myself, broaden my horizons. The very first one that we're going to be talking about is the very controversial autobiography of none other than Malcolm X. Now, I particularly chose this book because I wanted to educate myself in the viewpoints of other people. In this particular one with the struggle of a Black American, and a very controversial one in the early 1900s. Somebody that I've always felt myself to sympathize with as far as the idea of his response to the struggle and adversity that he was put through. You know, you can't say Malcolm X without saying Dr. Martin Luther King in the same voice, in the same breath. And you know, my own way to identify with him is not to lighten their struggle by any means, is to identify with the ideas of like Magneto and Professor X. I've always sympathized more with Magneto in that situation as I sympathize more with Malcolm X through their struggle. At a very young age, Malcolm X obviously was the victim of extreme, horrible racism. His life was rough. You know, he was beaten up, he was made fun of. His father was brutally murdered when he was a young age, literally thrown on the train tracks after being viciously beaten, left for dead. His mother was thrown in a mental institution after having what was described as a mental break. But to be honest, who could blame her for being under the conditions that she was forced to live in at the time and trying to bring up children in that kind of a hostile environment. You know, Malcolm X, you know, at a young age, he was taught that the only way he was going to be able to survive was to learn to hustle. So he became a hustler. I wouldn't say a gangster, but he became a hustler, whether it was like selling drugs, helping men find women at certain top clubs that he was in, bumping shoulders with a lot of the younger, amazing musicians, you know, back in the day, like black musicians at the clubs that he was working at. And you know, as a man, he was taught that hustle, and it's incredible that he was able to rise to the ranks that he was able to during that kind of oppressive age in the early 1900s that he was at. And coming from, again, not saying that I had any form of struggle compared to Black Americans now, let alone in the early 1900s, but I've experienced a lot of racism in my early ages. You know, getting beat up, bullied in fucking school, white boy this, fucking white-o that, you know, and it sucks because I've never shown anything but love and acceptance to anybody, whether it was, you know, you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever the case may be. I've always been as kind to people as I would hope to get experience in return, hope to be taught in return. Now, in his particular situation, you know, growing up having to survive, to learn that hustle and everything, he ended up getting busted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He was picking up a stolen watch, but primarily what really got him in trouble was he was associating with white women. It was a very corrupt time back then, pretty much anywhere in America at that point for young black males. And he was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and it was his time in prison that really educated himself and changed his life. When he was introduced to the idea of the Muslim religion, the idea of learning and bettering himself, you know, that's when he would literally, he got a dictionary and he copied the dictionary, the whole fucking dictionary, word for word, you know, broadening his vocabulary, becoming a more educated human being. And it was, originally when he first got into prison, he was so violent, he was so angry that the other prisoners called him Satan, which is fucking awesome. But he slowly started to learn to transform that hate into education, into directed, I guess, hate at the time, which, you know, who could fucking blame him? Whenever he got out, he ended up getting in touch with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then becoming, you know, originally, because he was writing to Elijah Muhammad about the Muslim religion every single day. He would write him while he was in prison. And, you know, Elijah Muhammad would respond as much and as often as he could. And while he was doing that, he was conditioning himself to that religion, to that specific black religion. Again, the idea of going to, you know, Catholic or Christian religion with a blue-eyed, you know, blonde-haired Jesus just seemed ridiculous. Who could fucking blame him? Absolutely. So the idea of an actual religion for, you know, black people, for black Muslims, just really appealed to him. Anyways, he ended up only spending, I think, 6 years in prison. He ended up getting let out early, and when he got let out, he became a tool, like a soldier for Elijah Muhammad, but then ended up becoming kind of raising above his ranks, and his own people ended up betraying him. In the end, Malcolm X ended up predicting his own death. You know, sorry, there's a plane going by. He ended up taking a trip to Mecca, to Africa, to go to like the ultimate Muslim experience. And while he was out there, he had such just a range of emotions, from accepting, you know, the idea that there are good white people out there that aren't, you know, specifically racist or driven to hate or whatever, to going back on that, to seeing the white Americans who would come to Africa and lie to their people, you know, trying to smile at them and, hey, welcome, you know, only because they wanted the minerals inside the continent of Africa, to accepting, again, that not all white people are bad, that there are actually white people out there that were trying to do good in the world and whatnot. Ultimately, Malcolm X ended up predicting his own death. In his autobiography, he said that he never saw himself living to be an old man. He knew that he was going to die violently, much like his father had done, his grandfather had done, standing up for their beliefs. And he ended up getting betrayed by his own people, probably from Elijah Muhammad, sending them. I guess he said that there was some kind of jealousy from Elijah Muhammad because of the charisma that Malcolm X had himself and the attention that he was bringing. So again, he ended up being betrayed by his own people and ultimately killed by his own people, which sucks. So I guess in the end, this is by far one of my favorite autobiographies. This is absolutely incredible and really gave me an insight to how, you know, Black Americans, the Black American experience. Again, I'm not trying to say that I know everything about the struggle. I'm not even trying to say that I have, you know, any idea of their struggle back then, but this gave me a little bit better, I guess, view of what they were going through. And I sympathize. There's nothing, you know, in the year 2022, you know, us as white people, and we still have, you know, an issue of racism, you know, whether it's in movies, music, or just out on the streets, you know, and we're still struggling on how to handle that, on how to tackle that issue. And we honestly have no fucking idea. It doesn't seem to be an issue that's easily handled, which is not expected by any means. You know, the idea of that amount of brutality to a race just based on the color of their skin, it fucking sucks, man. You know, the white people back then really fucked us over, really fucked everybody over by being pieces of shit like that. And you can't really handle that, whether it's something just like reparations or, you know, whatever. I can't, in my mind, think of a way to, you know, handle that. All I can think of is how I handle it personally, and that's why trying to be as nice, accepting, and as good a human being as possible. You know, this is a book that I feel like everybody should read. This is phenomenal. Malcolm X, you know, had this just absolute deep-seated, deserved hatred for all white people, like white devils, throughout his life. You know, in the end, he was able to accept that not everybody was evil and that there were good white people out there, which there are. Not everybody is evil. Not any religion or any race, if anybody, because evil is always good people out there, even if you've got to look really hard. So as we are human beings in 2022, the best thing that I can take from this book is to just be, again, kind of like what I've been preaching, you know, for the last few years, is to be kinder to people. You know, put yourself in their shoes before having any form of judgment at all. You know, even as a white guy who's experienced racism myself, you know, I don't have any idea of the black struggle or the Hispanic struggle or any struggle from anybody else's perspective. Even, you know, other white people's struggle, I don't know their struggle. Understand that everybody is going through their own struggles, going through their own bullshit, and to act accordingly. You know, be nice, spread love, not hate. Understand that not everybody's perfect. We're all making mistakes. Especially, we're still trying to recover from the mistakes in the past, which might be a losing battle. We might not ever be able to make up for that kind of shit. But just know that if you are watching this, to just be better. You know, be the change that you want to see in the world. On a scale of 1 to 10, this autobiography, this is a fucking big, bright, shining 10. This is one of my all-time favorite autobiographies. The next one I'm going to be reading is the autobiography of Dr. Martin Luther King, to kind of see through his eyes, his kind of struggle and whatnot. But until then, thanks guys for creeping it real with your Gothic Guru. I love you. James, out.